We want to begin where we always begin, and that is with Israel. We still see the military incursions in Gaza City. There is this massive displacement of hundreds of thousands of people from the city. There's going to be some video. I included the link from Democracy Now! From today to give you a sense of what's happening on the ground. Netanyahu spoke at the UN. I think, Ayman Mohadeen, my colleague at MSNBC, mentioned that this is the first time that an indicted war criminal has been allowed to speak in the well of the UN. Netanyahu was defiant. Actually, they blared the speech in Gaza, demanding the release, unconditional release of the 48 hostages. And as he spoke, there was this massive walkout, I think we need to understand Netanyahu as, at minimum, a bad actor. I think we need to understand what Israel and IDF is doing in Gaza amounts to genocide. And we can say that as we demand the release of the hostages from Hamas. So let's keep our eyes on that. Trump came out and said that he will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. One wonders from whence this will, as if he can control Netanyahu and the Likud party. But he said it out loud. Yet and still, the U.S. and our tax dollars are sanctioning, are enabling the horror that is taking place in Gaza. So let's keep our eyes on that, because as I say all the time, this is one of the most important moral issues of our day. And, speaking of Netanyahu in the UN, this past week we saw Trump's speech in the UN. Oh, my God. It's embarrassing on the national stage on so many different levels. Of course, he chastised states that recognize the Palestinian state. And there's, of course, the escalator and teleprompter stuff and his call for an investigation and the arrest of the conspiracy to embarrass him. This guy is so fragile, even as he tries to perform being a strong man. What did he say? He said that your countries are going to hell, right? What we saw on full display is the isolationism of the U.S., the deep suspicion on the part of the Trump administration and MAGA Republicans of the value of the United Nations. And one wonders, at least I do, why countries would even continue to try to engage the Trump administration. They need to understand who these folks are. And many do, I'm sure. But one wonders if the UN, how can I put this, can survive in New York. What does it mean for the United Nations to be headquartered in a country that has so fundamentally turned or shifted course or changed course? It's a tragic set of circumstances, right? And in the midst of that speech, we also heard the white nationalist language around immigration, the way in which he was talking about countries going to hell, the role of Europe needing to step up, the ways in which we can check, or the world needs to check Russia, even though he's not really doing it. So there's all this stuff going on there. And what we do know, and what we realize as we listen to that speech, as we at least try to listen to his ramblings, is that the post-World War II consensus is over. And the U.S.'s position on the world stage has fundamentally shifted. And I think countries around the globe recognize this and are trying to figure out what to do. There was this startling contrast between Trump and the president of Brazil, President Lula. Different messages, of course, and this has everything to do with, at least it's in the backdrop. Not only does it have something to do with the differences in political ideology, but, the 50% tariffs that Trump has levied on Brazil. So you had this kind of contrast. President of Colombia making explicit that there's no chosen nation, and vehement in his criticism of the United States and of Israel. Trump
not only lets missiles fall on young people in the Caribbean, he not only imprisons and chains migrants, but he also allows missiles to be launched at children, young people, women, and the elderly in Gaza. He becomes complicit in genocide because it is genocide, and we must shout it again and again.
Es genocidio y hay que gritarlo una y otra vez. La migración es.
Migration is an excuse for a rich, white, racist society to believe itself the superior race and to ignore that its leaders are taking it, together with all humanity, to the brink of its own extinction. So the global reality is that there's a fundamental shift in the center of power, even though the U.S. empire remains at the center of gravity of the globe. But it's all of what's happening, the uncertainty, the instability unleashed by Trumpism, right, is changing or reconfiguring global relations, right? And there's a fundamental question about whether or not multilateralism is dead. So I want you to go back. I've included in the link a link to Donald Trump's annotated speech, but take a look at it because I think this is really important for understanding the scope of the disruption of Trumpism. Now, of course, there are the stories we're still dealing with, the fallout of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but you know the taking of Jimmy Kimmel off air. I mean, it was. We know that this was an all-out assault on free speech. I mean, we not only did we talk last time about Karen Attiah at the Washington Post, but also the ways in which the right had weaponized or has weaponized the death of Charlie Kirk in order to cancel people who aren't conceding to their demand that people embrace Kirk's view. They've kind of renamed it, always renaming things, right? From cancel culture to consequence culture. That renaming doesn't shift the hypocrisy in the view. But here we have it very clearly with Kimmel, the president disliking Kimmel, just as he did Colbert, and the critique that they would offer, the nightly jokes, because his skin is so damn thin. And so he wanted him removed. The FCC chair, Brendan Carr, acted like a mafia thug in some ways, trying to walk it back. Kimmel is back on the air, but Sinclair stations and others aren't airing it still. Trump even, talks about, what's that moment? I can't believe ABC fake news gave Jimmy Kimmel his job back, and then kind of hinted that they would still go after him. Can you imagine the president of the United States, the most powerful person in the world, doing this? But, behind that story around Jimmy Kimmel and the extraordinary reactions on the part of Americans across the country, Disney lost billions. And I think this is a story that we need to pay attention to. The American people, we have to understand our power. The fact that billions of dollars were lost because people were canceling their subscriptions. Right? That wasn't organized by unions. That wasn't organized by legacy civil rights organizations or free speech organizations. Everyday ordinary people decided, we're going to cancel our subscriptions. That's our power, y'all. That's our power. And so it gives us a sense of how, if we decide, if the American people decide, we could gum up this thing. We can shut down what they're trying to do, their efforts to destroy American democracy. Now, underneath this story around Kimmel, though, is the consolidation of media. All of these efforts of media mergers. There's this effort on the part of oligarchs, in my view, with particular ideological leanings, to control the fourth estate. Now, think about this, y'all. There's already expansion of executive power, breaking all sorts of norms, disrupting the separation of power. So there's that, the capture of the executive. There's gerrymandering that has, in so many ways, rendered Congress dysfunctional, particularly the House of Representatives. The Senate kind of caught in a variety of ways. We can describe its dysfunction, but captured as well. So Congress cornered and captured. The judiciary captured. So we see an all-out effort. I've said over and over again, all the trains are running at the same time. So at the very moment in which each branch of government finds itself in crisis, there is an all-out effort on the part of oligarchs in cahoots with MAGA folk who are in power to take over the fourth estate, the richest men in the world, from X to Washington Post and now TikTok and the like, trying to control the very ways in which Americans, access information so that they can become the kind of deliberative subjects necessary for democracy to function, for self-governance to have any substantive meaning. So, yes, we can focus on the celebrity of Jimmy Kimmel and what it means for a late-night talk show host to be subject to the power of Donald Trump and his minions. We could talk about that, and we can be upset about not having his show aired because of conservative-leaning Sinclair and others, refusing to air it on their local stations. But we need to be mindful of what's happening at a macro level. And that is an all-out assault on the fourth estate. They are literally attacking the foundations of American democracy. One has to wonder what Alexis Tocqueville would say. What Alexis de Tocqueville would say, huh? This goes beyond just simply Jimmy Kimmel. It goes beyond just simply Disney. It cuts to the heart of this ongoing effort to undermine American democracy, or better, to capture it for ideological ends, rooted in greed and rooted in hatred. The Kimmel story, keep your eyes on that. Now, in the midst of all of this, there's so much going on. Trump ordering, the death penalty in cases in Washington, D.C. and the like. So much is happening. We are on the cusp again of the theater of governmental shutdown. We've been dealing with this for decades. It has been the way in which the Republican Party has extorted concessions from Democrats for at least 2 or 3, 4 decades, right? Three decades. But now it's different. Now, Chuck Schumer last time folded like wet tissue paper because he was worried about what it would mean for the federal government to shut down, given what Trump and his allies were trying to do. And it's a justifiable worry or concern, in my view. And we have to be mindful of this, particularly in this moment. They've already, with DOGE, laid off hundreds of thousands of people. Black women have taken it on the chin, right? As they've laid off federal workers in the name of efficiency and the like, when in fact what they're doing is reconstituting the bureaucratic state with Trump loyalists, right? They're not deconstructing the administrative state, they're remaking it to make it such that any administration who comes in after the Trump administration will find themselves running up against a bureaucratic state that's loyal to the policies, the ideology of Trumpism. They're playing the long game, everybody. All the trains are running at once. Trump's pettiness put aside, all the trains are running at once. I need to stop moving my hands. But when you got Russell Voigt, the director of OMB, sending out memos saying to all these agencies to put together an agenda for how they're going to let go all of these people who aren't hardline, have a hardline in their budgets. These efforts that are really tied to discretionary spending and the like, he said, we're going to let them go. Imagine the carnage. Imagine the carnage. See, this is the point, and I'm going to get to this near the end of this particular weekly wrap-up. Even though this is the drama of governmental shutdown is a reflection of the brokenness of the House of Representatives, they're not in some ways fulfilling their constitutional function, so you got to get these continuing resolutions in order to fund government. But even that traditional theater, or quote unquote traditional theater, can't be conducted in the same way because these people aren't the same people. They're not playing the same game. So even if Schumer decides, because of political pressure, he's underwater in a lot of ways in New York, right? And because of the debacle of the first time around, even if he decides not to blink, the carnage that will follow is something that we have to be mindful of. These people have flipped over the damn tape. They're not playing a game. And so they're saying, okay, don't give us what we want. Don't give us what we want, and we'll fire everybody that we can fire. That's what they're saying. And no matter your politics, where you stand on the political spectrum, that threat is real. And people have already lost their livelihoods, and they're threatening even more devastation. So we have to figure out how to play this game. Well, it's not even a game. We have to figure out how to respond to this differently, y'all. We have to figure out how to respond to this differently. We have to find their pressure points, their pain points, and begin to respond in kind, right? Right? Allowing them to shut down the federal government may not be the most strategic move or tactically effective move at this point. I don't know. I just take them at their word. And I already know of what's happened in Washington, D.C. and Maryland and Virginia, as these folks have lost their jobs and are struggling to keep a roof over their heads and keep their kids in college and pay their bills and the like. We got to deal with the reality of what these folk are doing. We have to deal with the reality of what these folk are doing. So, we have the government shutdown. We're going to be drowning in this over the next few weeks, couple of days, as it were, over the next news cycle. So just brace yourself. And let's hope that something more imaginative will be coming from the Democratic Party, its leadership and the like. Now, of course, the story that we're ending the week with is Comey, former FBI Director Comey's indictment. And, people, I mean, I don't, you see, I'm struggling with the words here because he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. I am your retribution, he said. And I'm always stunned by the response of a certain segment of the country. And I'm not talking about MAGA people. I'm talking about white liberals. And how, this is the breaking of the glass here. We've crossed the Rubicon again here, right? This is the end of the rule of law here, right? As if they've been giving this man the benefit of the doubt. Trump was explicit in that message on Truth Social or whatever the hell it is to Pam Bondi. Go after these guys. You're taking too long. He fired the folk. He fired the folk who refused to follow the order. Put in someone who doesn't have any prosecutorial experience, and it happened. And it happened so quickly because they had to beat the statute of limitation. Come on now. Folk who lost their jobs said, don't do this. Folk who are working in the office sent a memo saying, don't do this, and they did it anyway. Why? Trump's pettiness. Trump going after his enemies, right? And we know it's just going to now accelerate. Adam Schiff, get your lawyer up. I know you already lawyered up, right? John Bolton, right? folks who have lesser named folks who they know they're in the crosshairs. Now, this is Trump's pettiness. I've always said that Trump is a kind of avatar. They're allowing him to engage in his grift. They're allowing him to be petty, right? He's the avatar that in so many ways, the carnival barker that draws the attention while the trains are running on all tracks. But here we are seeing in full view the authoritarian state. And to say this, to call it the authoritarian state, to describe what Trump is doing as authoritarianism, according to Stephen Miller, is to incite violence. You see how they try to capture you with language, box you in, so that you can't even critique what they're doing? Because if you criticize what they're doing, they then invoke your values as a basis to criticize you. We have to be smarter. We have to be bolder. We have to be more imaginative in responding to these folks. The indictment of Jim Comey will probably not go anywhere, in my view. But it is a shot over the bow, another one. But I don't think it's over the bow. I think this has hit the damn shit. The rule of law applies only to their enemy, not to them. Jonathan Hurley even tweeted on X or posted on X as Hakeem Jeffries talked about all of those folk in the DOJ who were participating in this will one day be held to account. He tweeted with a kind of smugness that is often associated with Hurley, right? He said, apparently, these folk are talking about punishing bureaucrats for X, Y, and Z, right? As if they're going to do exactly what they're critiquing and criticizing Donald Trump for doing. And that is supposedly, on his view, an indication of a moral failing. The fact that you want to hold people to account for breaking the law, for breaking democratic norms, for breaking American democracy, you are no better than these folk who are doing it. That's the kind of insidious logic driving a lot of this stuff. Right. Jonathan Turley, you know who I'm talking about. So look, Trump in the UN, Jimmy Kimmel and Trump and government shutdown, Trump and Comey, Trump. All hell's breaking loose. It's not new. It's just exhausting. It's just exhausting. And in the middle of that, ugliness is happening. Ugliness is happening. Y'all, pay attention to this ICE story around alligator Alcatraz. Pay attention. The Miami Herald reported, and I put that in the links. I posted the link below. But they're reporting that 2/3 of more than 1,800 men have disappeared. No record. 1,800 men during the month of July cannot be detected, found. Can you imagine? 800 people, 800 of them showed no record. 450 listed no location. They're disappearing folk. And we're complicit. So just as I say that U.S. tax dollars complicit in the genocide in Gaza, we are complicit in what ICE is doing. We are complicit in what's going on, right, at alligator Alcatraz. We are. And our relative silence. And our refusal to demand, where are these people? And we continue to be inundated with the images of ICE masked folk running rampant throughout our cities and towns. Now, I want to join the horror of what's happened in alligator Alcatraz with what's happening in Houston. They found another body. Sixth body in the last 2 weeks in Houston Bayou. It has been one of those weeks. Compounded, right? Cascading events He's exhausted. But what I do know is this, and I said this on Nicole Wallace the other day, and folks got mad at me, I think. It's not enough to just simply fight back. It's not enough just simply to counterpunch. It's not enough to just simply call them names or do exactly what Donald Trump is doing in response to their policies. We have to offer an alternative vision. Democrats have to play this. Let me say it differently. They have to respond to this all-out assault on American democracy with an urgency that reflects the scale, right, of what these folk are doing. Can't play the game as usual. You can't retreat into the standard playbook of the third way Democrats where you're trying to triangulate. You can't wait on election processes because they're doing things that are going to gum up that. You can't wait till you take over the House and the leadership, right? Because the moment these folk take over the House of Representatives, if they win the midterms, the Trump folk are going to claim it as illegitimate, and it's going to heighten. It's going to heighten the effort that they've been trying to do, that they've been trying to engage in to challenge the separation of state of branches, the separation of powers. What do I mean? If the Democrats win the midterms, this is going to provide them with a theater where they're just going to reject everything the Democrats try to do and then dare them to try to hold them to account. They're going to dare you, just like Russell Voigt is daring you now. They're going to stare you down and say, what are you going to do? So the question becomes, right, what? You can't just rely on the standard playbook. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about the disappearing of people at Alcatraz? What are you going to do about the wholesale slaughter that's taking place with regards to federal workers? What are you going to do about the all-out assault on the rule of law? What are you going to do in response politically to the worldview that they're imposing on the country? We are watching in real time the dismantling of America. Democrats can't play games because they flipped over the damn table. I've run my mouth too long. We're going to have to figure out what we can do. If you can cause Disney to lose billions of dollars over a late night talk show host, think about what we can do if we mobilize our energies for something even grander. If we respond to what these folk are doing at scale, we, the people, respond.